Hi folks, this is a video for Darryl Sloan and anyone else out there who believes that evolution is a fact. Now, the thing is, Darryl, when I watch some of your videos, every time you mention evolution, you speak of it as if it was a fact and that all your viewers agree with that as it were a given, like 2 plus 2 equals 4. But that's not actually true, Darryl, and I wanted to explain to you why. Um, because it seems like like on the other topics that I um, made videos about to you, that you're only again just looking at one side of the issue. It's like you've only researched one side of a big controversial issue, and you never looked at the other side. It's like you jump to a conclusion again right away, and you didn't really look at both sides of the subject. So I wanted to explain to you why it's not evolution is not a fact, and this is a big subject, so I can't go into a lot of detail about it, and I'm not the world's foremost expert on this by any means, but I have looked at both sides of the issue, and um, and I can tell you it's not a fact, and it's not been proven. Okay, okay, let me make some important points. Okay, first of all, for something to be a science, especially a scientific fact, it has to be subject to the scientific method. Okay, and that involves observation, testing, and experimentation, and looking at the results. Okay, that's part of the scientific method, and without that, it's not science. But evolution is not subject to those to that process. Okay, you can't test it, you can't observe it, you can't look at the results of it. Okay, because evolution says that one species can become another over millions of years, and that's a theory, that's an assumption, and as the Christians say, as the creationists say, that's a religion because it's not something you can test. It's not something you can observe. You can't test this in the lab, okay? So it's not science, okay? And one of the guys I'm going to tell you about, named Dr. Kent Hovind, he explained that very well, okay? So you can't say that it's a fact, okay? Especially since there aren't the transitional species or intermediate species required for that. Okay, so for example, um, evolution says that reptiles became birds. Okay, over the course of millions of years. Now, for that to have happened, I mean, you would have to have so many forms over millions of years between reptiles and birds. You'd have to have creatures that were part reptile, part bird, with partial wings, for example, and not just one of them, but probably millions of them, because they've transitioned over millions of years, according to the theory, okay, from reptiles to birds, and we don't have that. I mean, you can take certain things, certain species or fossils, and say, oh, this is a transitional species or something. Anybody could do that, but it's not proof. I mean that could be a species on its own. The fact is, we've never observed a dog creating a non-dog or a horse giving birth to a non-horse. Okay, because you can have variations within species. That's called microevolution. Okay, just because, like for example, there's different types of dogs, different dog breeds. There's different breeds of horses, like zebras, for instance, um, and cats too. There's different variations within each species. And Darwin talked about birds in Origin of the Species, how there's different variations, okay? But that's called microevolution, and that is very easily observable because when species reproduce, okay, there are variations, and within each species there are variations like different colors, different features, and that is very observable. And so that is scientific. That is a fact that there are variations, and that's called microevolution, which maybe is not a very accurate way of describing it. But there's no proof for macroevolution because that it implies that one species becomes another separate species. Okay, and that is not a fact. That's not been proven. Okay, so the thing is, um, with microevolution, I mean, it can be observed, but not macroevolution. Okay, so for example, let's say um, like a reptile becoming a bird. Okay, over millions of years, it would have to develop a partial wing at first. Okay, and that doesn't make any sense because there's no advantage to developing a partial wing. A reptile that develops a partial wing could not fly, so there's no benefit. A reptile does not need a wing to live. There's no benefit to its survival to develop a wing. And so, so what's the advantage to developing a partial wing? I mean, it doesn't make sense. Okay, and and it's not been observed. Okay, now evolutionists like to argue and say, well, the process is slow change, consists of slow changes over millions of years. But the thing is, if you can't prove it because it's a slow process over millions of years, and they also say that most species, when they die, or most organisms, when they die, they don't leave behind a fossil. They just get eaten up by other animals in nature. And so that's why there are very few fossils in the record. But the thing is, if that's so, then either way, they have no proof. I mean, it's just conjecture. It's a theory. If you don't have the fossils to prove evolution, okay, that one species became another, you don't have the proof. You don't have the evidence. I mean, you can cop out and say, oh, these changes are so gradual. They happen over millions of years, and there's so few fossils because most organisms, when they die, don't create fossils. Well, okay, that's fine, but that doesn't mean that evolution is proven. I mean, it's not a given. I mean, Darryl, it seems like, I mean, in your book list, you have The Blind Watchmaker by Richard Dawkins. It seems like all you've done is read a few books by Richard Dawkins, and then you've jumped to the conclusion that evolution is a fact. I mean, have you read anything by Jonathan Wells, like Icon of Evolution, or Stephen Meyer? There's a lot of good books that debunk evolution. There's some by Richard Milton too. And there's a lot of experts like Dr. Kent Hovind, who you probably never heard of because you don't. It seems like you don't research both sides of the topic. You got to listen to the best arguments from both sides before jumping to your conclusions, and it seems like you haven't done that. And the thing is, okay, so the thing is, I mean, not only is there not transitional species, okay, but um, it's just not science if it can't be subject to testing and experimentation. It's just a theory. And also, I wanted to point out another thing, which is the concept of beneficial mutations. You see, for evolution to work, there has to be these beneficial mutations that happen over a long period of time for one species to become another species. But the thing is, no beneficial mutations have ever been observed. Okay, and when I say beneficial mutations, I'm talking about adding information to a species, adding information that gives it an advantage. And that's not been observed in science. And the example that evolutionists tend to give is the one where bacteria develops resistance to antibiotics. But that's been debunked, okay? And that's not an example of beneficial mutations, because when bacteria develop resistance, okay, to antibiotics, it involves a loss of information. It does not involve a gain of information. It involves a loss. That bacteria has to lose information to resist the antibiotics. And that's been proven in science. You can look it up. Okay, so if you lose information, that's not an advantage, and that's not technically a beneficial mutation. It would be the equivalent of like this, for example. Suppose you were to handcuff a man, okay? You put a man in handcuffs, and he escapes by cutting his arms off, okay? If the man cut his arms off to escape the handcuffs, yeah, he's going to escape the handcuffs, but he's going to lose some body parts, and that involves a loss of information. That's a disadvantage. If a man loses his arms, that's a disadvantage. That's not a benefit. That's not an advantage. Okay, so it's, that's kind of the analogy that this is. Like so if a man cuts off his arms to get out of handcuffs, that's not an advantage. That's a very big disadvantage. It decreases his function. Okay, and likewise, a bacteria that develops resistance to antibodies, it's gonna be at a disadvantage because it's gonna lose information. It's gonna lose part of itself. So that's technically not a beneficial mutation. Okay, so that's been debunked. And in the description box below, I'm going to post a couple of videos for you. And they're only short videos. They're only a few minutes long. I'm going to post a couple of science videos for you about why beneficial mutations don't work. And I mean, the whole concept has never been proven. It's never been proven to exist. And these videos will make a lot of sense, okay? And they're very short. They're only a few minutes long, so I advise you to watch those videos, and they'll explain why beneficial mutations don't work and they can't happen the way evolutionists claim. Okay. And also I'm gonna post some debate videos for you in the description box. And I want you to watch them, at least watch 2 of them. Okay, I'm probably just going to post 2. But I'd like you to at least just to watch them and then reconsider, and you'll understand why evolution is not a fact. Okay, and the debate videos I'm talking about are by Dr. Kent Hovind. And you can search his name in YouTube. His name is spelled Kent, and Hovind is Hovind, or Kent Hovind, or whatever. But he's one of the most strongest debaters when it comes to creation versus evolution. And I'm sorry, he is a Christian, okay, but I'm not endorsing that side of him, okay. I'm only just endorsing the part where he proves in his videos that evolution is not science. And in one of the debates that I'm going to post to you below, it's where he debates Michael Shermer, who's the editor of Science magazine. And Michael Shermer has been debating this stuff for many years, and he writes for Skeptic magazine, and he's been interviewed on a lot of topics, because he's a debunker. He's a debunker of anything that doesn't fit the materialistic atheistic model. And in the video below, Michael Shermer and Kent Hovind debate in front of a live audience about creation versus evolution, and this is really worth watching because it's not dry and serious. Okay, it's very funny, entertaining. There's a lot of wit and humor, and it'll make you laugh too. It's very entertaining and funny. So, they have a good time with this. They try to make some humor out of this. It's not super serious. Okay. But you'll enjoy the debate. It's very interesting, and you'll see that when you stack up the arguments of evolution and creationism together, the evolutionists doesn't really hold water. And Kent Hovind pointed that out very eloquently in his videos. And then there's another debate video below where Dr. Kent Hovind debates the students at UC Berkeley. In that debate, he went to UC Berkeley, and the students in the auditorium, they lined up to debate him one by one, and Kent Hovind destroyed each of them one by one. And so there's a lot of students that line up to debate him, and this is like over 2 hours long, but it's really worth watching. Because a lot of these students, I mean, they really make asses out of themselves. They get emotional, they get rude. It's like they're personally offended by anyone that questions evolution, which is odd. I don't know why anyone would have a personal, emotional, vested interest in evolution. But apparently a lot of people do, because you can see in that debate, a lot of the students were angry that he would debunk evolution and make it look stupid and foolish. And so they line up to debate him, but he destroys them and dismantles them one by one. And as he does, they get more and more rude and emotional. So you can tell this is really an emotional issue for a lot of people. It's not a logical one. It's an emotional one. It's a philosophy. It's a philosophy that life is meaningless and we're just animals, which you've spouted on your videos several times. But you assume that it's true and you haven't heard the other side. So I'd really like you to watch these debates with Dr. Kent Hovind. And I'm pretty sure after you watch both of them, I'm sorry that they're going to be really long, but they're very interesting. They're very funny, especially the one with Michael Shermer, okay? I mean, there's a lot of wit and humor, so you'll enjoy this, okay? But if you watch both of these, I think you'll rethink it, because I know you're a rational free thinker and you're a logical man. And you're not the type of guy that believes in something just because authority says so or establishment says so. I know you're a very good skeptic and critic of Christianity, but you've got to learn to be more skeptical about other things too, like evolution or even your own beliefs. Because a real skeptic is skeptical of his own beliefs too, not just of obvious things, not just of things they don't believe in. You see, if you're only skeptical of things you don't believe in, then the word skeptic has no meaning, because everybody is skeptical of things they don't believe in. Okay, the average person is skeptical about things that he or she does not believe in. So in order to be a skeptic, you got to be skeptical of everything, including what the establishment tells you, including evolution, not just anything that's fringe or something, or religion. Okay, you got to be skeptical of other things too. So yeah, I would really watch those videos below, and this is a big subject. I can't talk a lot about it, okay, but you'll see that evolutionists have resorted to lies too. For example, they claim that the two little muscles inside the whale that's used for pushing out the whale's baby, they claim that those used to be legs when the whale was a land animal. But that's a lie. That's been refuted, but they still teach it in evolution class because they're desperate to find evidence and they can't find it. So they make up lies. And you know, Darryl, that lying is wrong. So yeah, and that's not the only lie. They've made up a lot of other lies, and the videos by Dr. Hovind will go into detail about that. So I really encourage you to watch that and then get back to me. But if you respond to this video, Darryl, I would really strongly insist that you watch these videos that I post below. Because if you're a rational person and an unbiased person and with a little bit of an open mind, I think you'll think you'll reconsider. I think you'll realize that the issue is not cut and dry. Evolution is not a fact like 2 + 2 = 4. And also, like Dr. Hovind says, and you might have said so in the past, I mean, the atheists don't have all the answers. The evolutionists don't either. For example, they talk about the Big Bang, dark matter, parallel universes. They can't prove any of these, but they claim that they're facts, and that's not science, because you can't test these things, you can't observe them, you can't experiment with them. Okay, so they don't follow the scientific method, but the scientific establishment considers these to be facts. Okay, so you got to understand that there's a difference between science itself, which is a tool, a method, methodology, and the scientific establishment, which is subject to politics, agendas, bias, corruption, okay, and groupthink. When I say groupthink, I mean if you publish a scientific paper, for example, and you talk about intelligent design, or you refute evolution, it's not going to be published in a scientific journal like Nature or Scientific American. They're not going to publish it because it goes against their what they want. It goes against their agenda, which is that they have to promote atheistic science. They have to promote a godless universe. They have to promote a universe where God is not necessary. That's their agenda. So if your scientific paper doesn't fit that agenda, it won't be published. So there is a censorship. There is a groupthink. So I want you to understand that there's a difference between the scientific institution or the establishment that publishes the journals and the methodology of science. Okay, science is just a tool. It's like your computer. It's a tool. It doesn't have a position of whether something is true or false. Okay, people have positions, but science doesn't. Just like your computer doesn't have a position. It's a tool. It's a way to find information, okay? And that's what science is, okay? It doesn't have an official position about God or the supernatural or evolution, okay? That's the position of the establishment science, okay? That's the difference. So I wanted you to understand that. And Darryl, I'm not saying that just because evolution is wrong, that the Christian version of creationism must be true, okay? I don't support the Bible story literally either, like Kent Hovind does. Okay, I lean more toward what's called the intervention theory. And you can look at that up on Google or YouTube. There's a lot of information about it. It's intervention theory. If you type that in YouTube, you'll see a lot of videos about it, like by Lloyd Pye or Dr. Zechariah Sitchin, okay? And it basically states that an outside force, whether it be gods or ETs or some higher level beings, they must have come to Earth at some point and developed genetic hybrids. They must have interfered with human evolution. I mean, not human evolution, but primate evolution or hominid evolution. They must have interfered with the natural, cycle on Earth, the natural path. Okay, they interfered with biology on Earth by genetically intervening. Okay, to create a hybrid species with their DNA or some unknown DNA and that of hominids. Hominids are like Cro-Magnon or Neanderthal man, where a creature is part human and part ape. That's what a hominid is, and they can't naturally become humans. So some outside force used genetic alterations to create humans. That's why the human body, the human DNA, has 95% junk DNA, which no other species on Earth has. Okay, animals don't have junk DNA. Okay, only humans do. So we have an unknown DNA in our body, in our DNA, that science cannot explain. Okay, and that is most likely the result of a genetic hybrid, okay, from an unknown source. Okay, and a lot of researchers are saying that it must have been the Anunnaki, which are the gods of the Sumerians and Mesopotamians. Their gods, known as the Anunnaki, must have come and genetically altered primates or hominids to create humans. And that is the third option besides creation and evolution that a lot of people are leaning towards more and more. So I encourage you to research that theory, intervention theory, and I'm going to post a video for you in the description box where about 4 or 5 researchers talk about this. They're just short video clips, okay, so it's not that long, but in it you can see 4 or 5 researchers talking about the intervention theory and why it's the only possible and most likely explanation for humans, because humans should not be here. They don't follow, they just don't follow nature, everything else that nature has created. Okay, they just don't fit into the world like all the animals do. So yeah, I think it's the best explanation at this point, and I encourage you to research it and see for yourself about it. It's very interesting too, so definitely something to consider. And I'd also like you to consider this philosophical argument for a moment. Okay, everything in nature, or everything created by nature, okay, seems to have a certain harmony with nature. Okay, and that applies to the insects, plants, animals, even bacteria, okay? So it seems like everything created by nature is in harmony with nature. It does not destroy nature, okay? I mean, it destroys some things in nature, but it's part of the cycle of nature. It's part of the food chain. It's part of the cycle of birth, death, renewal. It's just part of a natural cycle, but the only thing that doesn't fit into that are humans. Okay, humans destroy nature. Humans pollute nature. They destroy trees. They destroy land to build on it. Okay, humans cause destruction to the environment. Okay, and humans are the only species that does that. So it does not appear from this pattern that humans were created solely by nature. I mean, humans are biological and they contain animal parts. They contain animal instincts and animal natures, like the desire to reproduce, to thrive, to survive. Those things are in common with the animal kingdom, but humans also are different. I mean, humans think, they wonder about life. They wonder what the meaning of life is. Humans are capable of evil, whereas animals are not. Animals just follow their instincts. And humans also destroy nature. They pollute the environment. They cause a lot of destruction. And nothing else in nature does that. Okay. So humans don't fit into the cycle of nature, and so that indicates that humans are not solely a product of nature. That there must be an outside force that has intervened and altered nature, or put humans here somehow. Because based on this theory or this philosophy, humans don't fit. They're not part of nature, at least not 100%. Okay. So think about that for a moment. I mean, it makes sense. Because nothing else in nature destroys it the way humans do. And even if you take something destructive like cancer, for instance, cancer will only destroy the organism it inhabits. It'll only destroy the life that it's inhabited. And when it does, it only kills one life. It doesn't destroy the environment or nature or the ecosystem. Cancer cannot destroy a whole forest, okay? It just destroys one organism, the one that it inhabits, okay? So that's not a comparison. Okay, there's nothing in nature that destroys an entire forest or an entire ecosystem, okay? Every other organism somehow fits into it, the ecosystem, except man. So think about that. That's a really interesting philosophical argument here. Um, Now, Darryl, I also wanted to talk about a few other things. One is that I saw a video you made to Mario, the Vigilant Christian, where you talked about his problems and his admission to having bipolar and him leading a double life. And it was really good. I mean, you were very empathetic in it and very genuine. So I appreciate that too. You were speaking from the heart, and you were very sincere. And I hope that Mario takes some of your advice in it, because I could tell you really wanted to help the guy, and you were full of empathy too. So I liked that video. It was good, but the thing is, I also noticed that there were some false assumptions in there. I mean, you told Mario, first of all, that there's no God listening to his prayers, but you can't know that, Darryl. Yeah, not everybody's prayers get answered, but some people's prayers do get answered. I mean, I've had prayers answered, and if you ask a lot of your Christian friends, they'll tell you the same thing, that they've had prayers answered too. It doesn't mean that all prayers are answered, but some are. I mean, what I've noticed is that if you pray for something that's more realistic and something that's good for you and in alignment with your destiny, okay, most of the time, if not all, you'll get that prayer answered. Things will happen, like a series of coincidences, and people will show up out of nowhere to answer the prayer. I've seen that happen. It's happened. And so, but if you ask for something really selfish that would require a lot of energy to give you, like $1 million, for instance, or a new sports car, God's not going to answer a prayer like that, because, it's just pure selfishness, and it's out of alignment. And plus, God would have to expend a lot of energy to make that happen. Okay, I don't think that God is all powerful like the Christians say. I think God has to work within boundaries. Like, he can help you with certain things that are part of your destiny, that are good for you. Like, for example, if I said, God, please help me to forgive people that have wronged me, or please help me to do my job better, or please help me to develop my hobbies. Please help me to be kinder to other people, or please help me to save up money so I can buy this book I need to get into this class or something. If you ask for little things like that, God will help you and intervene and push you along. Okay. And I don't know if it's God answering these prayers. Maybe it's your higher self. Maybe it's the universe. Maybe it's a group of angels that help people when they feel that they deserve to be helped. But this does happen, and you can talk to any devout Christian about it. They'll all have examples of this. So you can't just say there's nothing up there and that when you pray nobody's listening. You can't say that, Darryl. You're not the master of the universe. You're not qualified to say that. And I don't know why you're so eager to jump on things that you don't know about. In fact, there's even this movie that came out recently in 2016, and it's called Miracles from Heaven. Okay, you can watch this movie or look for it online. The movie's called Miracles from Heaven, and in this movie, this girl has this incurable illness that's affecting her stomach, and she cannot eat or digest any food or nutrition, and so she's slowly dying, and the doctors can't do anything for her. So they send her home. And all the prayers that the family prayed for, it didn't go answered. But eventually it did, because a miracle happened. when this girl was knocked unconscious while she was playing outside, okay, she had a dream where she talked to God, and God said, "Don't you want to go back to your life?" And she said, "Yeah, but I don't want to go back to this incurable illness. It's causing a lot of suffering." And then God says, "Okay, well, I'll cure it for you so you don't have to go back and suffer." And so then the girl agrees to go back to her life, and then when she wakes up from her near-death experience, she's totally cured, completely, 100%. The incurable illness that she had or disorder that she had is gone completely. So she gets cured. I mean, so sometimes miracles like that can happen, and in the medical profession, they're called spontaneous remission. Okay, I know that, but that's just a label. Okay, but that is a very miraculous story. You should see it. It'll touch your heart. It's very inspiring. It's very inspirational. Okay, and I encourage you to see that movie. So you I think it'll help restore some of your faith, and you'll see that it's not true that prayers never get answered. Sometimes they do, and we don't know why they get answered for some people and others no. Maybe some people have better karma, okay, and so they have more credit to get prayers answered or something. Or maybe God or the angels just feels like it. Maybe they feel like certain people they like, they prefer to help them and answer their prayers more. Who knows? Okay, I don't assume that if there's a God that he's going to be perfect and love everybody equally. Okay, that's a politically correct idea that I don't necessarily believe that God has to be limited to human fairness or political correctness. I think God, if there's a God, he has his choice. Or if there's a group of angels up there, they have their opinions, they have their choice. They don't have to love everyone equally. Maybe they might like someone more than others, so they'll help that person, they'll heal the person. Or maybe that person has better karma from past lives or whatever, and maybe that good karma gives them credit to survive. And maybe some people are just protected somehow. There's a lot of people in history that have been through a lot of danger where they should have been killed, but they didn't. For example, George Washington, Andrew Jackson, the gunfighter, Wyatt Earp. These people have been in situations where they should have died multiple times, but they didn't. So some people, it seems, are protected by a divine hand or a higher force or by angels. And it might be that they have a destiny in life, and until they complete that destiny, it's not their time to go. So that might be the case, okay? Because some people are not protected. Some people, some people are not. So I don't think it's all random. I think everything has a purpose or a higher order. You may not be able to see that, and I know you may not agree with that, but if you talk to people, Darryl, that have a lot of experience, that are older than you, that have a lot of life experience, most of those people will not tell you that life is random and meaningless. Okay, most of the people that have the most experience in life, they'll usually tell you that they do believe that things happen for a reason, and that there's a lot of things that they can't explain, and that there are higher forces. Okay. And probably some designer of the universe. Okay, so most of the most wise, experienced people in the world will tell you that because they have more experience than you and me. Okay, so don't make up your mind right away. You've admitted that life is a journey where you constantly update your beliefs. Okay, and I agree with that. So don't act like your current beliefs are set in stone and that they're the final plateau. No. There are people that are a lot more experienced than you, Darryl, that have come to different conclusions, more similar to what I'm telling you. So I don't think it was a good thing or a wise thing for you to tell Mario that nobody's listening to his prayers and that there's no God out there. You don't know that, and you're invalidating his experience. He's probably had experiences where God has answered some prayers, or God has helped him in some way. You can't invalidate that just because you don't believe in God. Okay. And another thing you said was that there is no Illuminati out there. And I already made a video about that to you, Darryl, where I explained to you that the Illuminati is well documented by history, and it did exist. Whether it exists now is another issue, but it did exist, and that is a historical fact. And since that video, I've discovered that even the Encyclopedia Britannica says that it existed. Okay, I'm talking about the Illuminati in 1776 with Adam Weishaupt. Even the Encyclopedia Britannica says that it existed. So who are you to say that it never existed? I mean, you're not qualified to make that statement because you've done no research. I mean, you haven't even, I mean, it's like you haven't even taken Conspiracy 101. You haven't even taken an introductory course to conspiracies. So you don't even have an elementary understanding. You don't even know about Adam Weishaupt and the Illuminati in 1776 in Bavaria. That is a basic fact that any conspiracy researcher knows. That's elementary knowledge. But you don't even have this elementary knowledge, so you haven't even taken the beginner's course in this. You don't even know the basics of this. So you're certainly not qualified to declare the Illuminati doesn't exist. And the way you said it was kind of like this. No, I don't believe in the Illuminati. Okay. I mean, I don't know if that's a good impression of you, but that's the way you said it. Now, I don't believe in the Illuminati. You know, as though it were a fact, okay? I mean, you said that as though you were certain of it and it was a fact, but you don't even have the basics of it. You don't even know about the Bavarian Illuminati, so you can't just suddenly declare, "No, I don't believe in the Illuminati." I'm sorry if that's a bad imitation, but you get my point, okay? I mean, you don't know anything about the Illuminati, so you can't declare that, okay? So yeah, I mean, and plus, you know, Mario the Vigilant Christian, he's probably spent many years just researching the Illuminati, okay? And not just in terms of his Christian beliefs, but just in general of the conspiracies out there and the Satanists that run MTV and Hollywood, for instance. Some of that does seem to be true because he's shown a lot of evidence of it, okay? So you can't just dismiss it with a broad brush, Darryl. I mean, it seems like if you don't like something, you dismiss it with a broad brush. I mean, it's kind of like you were saying that everything Mario says about the Illuminati is false because it doesn't exist at all. You can't do that, Darryl, because this is a broad topic, just like a lot of things are. And it may contain some true things, as well as some false things, as well as some exaggerations, okay? But it doesn't mean that the whole thing is false, okay? You can't just erase it and claim that there's zero truth in it. But you essentially did that with Mario when you said that Mario, you should consider that maybe there is no Illuminati, that there is no God answering your prayers. That's what you said, and I think it was wrong for you to say that because you don't know that. You don't know anything about the Illuminati. And obviously Mario has done a lot of research on this subject. Now, I don't agree with Mario about his fundamentalist Christianity or his insistence that the Bible is absolute truth. That I am in agreement with you on, Darryl, but that doesn't mean everything he says is wrong, okay? Especially when he talks about the Illuminati, which is real, and at least it was real, but which is very well documented. And I already when I already talked at length about this in my other video about the Illuminati to you, Darryl. Um, so if you haven't seen that, I would suggest watching that first. So I don't think it was right for you to just declare that, because you're basically invalidating Mario's research into the Illuminati. Okay. I mean, it would be like me telling you, Darryl, that everything you said about Christianity and your telekinesis with the side wheel thing is wrong and false, 100%. If I said that, I would be invalidating all your research, and you wouldn't like that, right? It would be stupid. It would be foolish. But that's what you're doing to Mario when you tell him that all his research into the Illuminati is wrong and completely non-existent and is completely zero. You essentially told him that, and that wasn't right, Darryl. I mean, you should revise some of these statements you're making, these extreme statements. Okay, I mean, for example, if I was a marine biologist, okay, and I spent my entire life studying the marine biology, all the life in the sea and stuff, okay, and you came along and said, hey, there is no marine biology, it doesn't exist, you would be invalidating my lifetime of work in that subject. It would be not only insulting, but it just makes you look so ignorant and pompous and close-minded. And if you're a truth seeker, I don't think you should be doing that. If you're a really good philosopher, you shouldn't do that, okay? You shouldn't invalidate somebody's years of research like that, okay? What you should do is if you were a reasonable man, you would say something like, okay, maybe not everything that Mario says about the Illuminati is true, but maybe some of it is, because he does have evidence to show for it, to back it up. And not only him, but many other people too, many other good researchers that know a lot more than I do, including Alex Jones or Mark Dice or David Icke. Those people have spent a lot more time researching the Illuminati than you have, Darryl, a lot more. So they're way more qualified on it than you. And even they're not right about everything. I see a lot of mistakes in what they say too, a lot of basic errors, even in basic history. But it doesn't mean that they have no value. It doesn't mean everything they say is wrong. Some of what they say is right and can be documented, can be substantiated. And I would say that goes for Mario too. I mean, some of what he says can be validated and substantiated. So I think he's right about some things and he's wrong about others. But if you were reasonable, you would see that. You would say, yeah, some of what he says is right. Some maybe not true. Some maybe exaggerated. But I wouldn't just invalidate a man's many years of research just by waving your hand and saying it's not true. You can't do that, Darryl. Think about it. Okay. Now, there was one more thing I was going to talk about. What was it? Well, let me pause for a minute and think about it. Oh, yes, I remember now. In your video to me, okay, about love versus the self-serving life, you kind of talked about selfishness and selflessness or egolessness, and you made the basic popular argument that people who are selfish are bad, and people who are selfless or unselfish are good. Okay, and I think that's a very narrow dichotomy, okay, because I don't know if you've read the philosopher Ayn Rand, Ayn Rand, Ayn Rand, and she has a treatise called The Virtue of Selfishness, And in this treatise, the virtue of selfishness, she describes what's called the unselfishness trap, which it's basically society's way of controlling you by telling you that, oh, you shouldn't do what you want, or follow your bliss, or follow your heart, because you're being selfish. You should do what's best for the collective. You should do what the government says, because the government works for the collective, and so by not following or not conforming, you're being selfish. So they actually society uses that against you as a stick, to try to get you to comply, saying that if you do what you want, you're selfish, and if you conform, then you're unselfish. It's a way of controlling you, okay, of getting you to do what others want you to do. And so that's why it's called an unselfishness trap. It's used against you, okay? I don't know if you're aware of that, okay? And there's another book that I've mentioned to you a long time ago. It's called How I Found True Freedom in an Unfree World. And it's by Harry Brown, okay? I think I sent you a copy in PDF before. And I don't know if you've read any of it, but there's a chapter in that book called The Unselfishness Trap. The Unselfishness Trap. And Harry Brown makes the same argument. He made a lot of logical arguments about why you should not listen to society when it tells you that, oh, you got to be unselfish and do what other people want. You got to let other people control your life and make your life fit their standard of what's good and bad, of what's right and wrong. So basically, it's taking away your freedom, your integrity, to decide for yourself what's right and what's best. Okay, it's saying that your life belongs to other people, and that you should conform and do what they think is best for you. You should let other people tell you what to do. Otherwise, you're selfish. It's called the unselfishness trap. It wants you to give away your life to others. Okay? And it's a trap because society uses it to control you. And Harry Brown makes a lot of good arguments in that chapter about why it's not good. It's just a psychological trap. And I suggest that you read these chapters. I sent you that book a long time ago by PDF. And you can also read the essay by Ayn Rand called The Virtue of Selfishness, which also debunks that. And I really encourage you to read things that go against what you preach, because sometimes they're good, sometimes they're right, sometimes they contain things that you didn't think of. So I think it's a very narrow dichotomy for you to have this view that, oh, everyone that's selfish is bad and everyone unselfish is good, and it's not that simple, okay? And I admire you for wanting to help people, for not being too egotistic and wanting you and not wanting to live a life where you only satisfy your ego desires. Okay, that's very admirable, and it's very charitable. And when I showed your videos to my parents, they actually said that Darryl Sloan seems to be very holy, okay? Not holy in the religious sense, okay? But holy in the sense that you're not living for your selfish desires. You're not living for yourself. I mean, you're kind of egoless in that you live for others too. You care about helping others, and you're not so self-centered. You don't let your ego control your life the way some people might, okay? And that's very admirable. So, but I have noticed, like I've mentioned in my videos, that even though you're very egoless and not as selfish as a lot of people are, that a lot of parts of your mind, I mean, on a lot of issues, your mind is very kind of narrow and closed. It's like your mind is you don't want to take a lot of information in your mind. Maybe you're a simple type of guy, and you don't want to consider too many details or ideas that conflict with your ideas. So to simplify your life, you shut out most of the information about it and just ignore it because you want to keep everything simple. And that's fine if that's the type of guy you are, but it does sort of make you kind of narrow-minded or small-minded because you're not willing to research all the evidence of the other side. You jump to a conclusion really fast, and you don't research the other side. And you don't want to because you're not interested, because I get the sense that it's because maybe you just want a very simple life and you want to keep your mind simple. So you don't want to research too many things, you don't want too much information, you don't want too many competing ideas. You don't want to see evidence that debunks your position. So and you don't want to take into consideration either. So you just dismiss it and ignore it and pretend it doesn't exist. And I acknowledge that because you do that, okay, if that's true, then you might not even respond to this video either, because in this video I'm giving you a lot of information that doesn't fit into your position, into your belief, and it may be that you don't want to look at this evidence or look at things that don't fit into your paradigm. So you'd rather ignore it and dismiss it. So it may be possible that I may not even receive a response to this video because you don't want to process all this information I'm telling you. You'd rather ignore it and keep life simple and keep your mind simple. You'd rather have simple, quick positions on various issues like evolution, the Illuminati, God, or whatever. You just want to make up your mind very fast and not look at all the evidence because you don't have the time or the interest. Maybe your mind is kind of simple. You don't want to think about too many things at the same time. So you'd rather just keep things simple and not forget everything else. Maybe that's the kind of guy you are, and I'm sure a lot of men are like that. Okay, I've known others that are like that too. They just want to keep life simple. They just want some simple beliefs and not think too much about it, okay? And that's fine, but you can't call yourself a true philosopher or an open-minded intellectual if you're like that, okay? You can't call yourself an objective researcher or claim that you're open-minded or claim that you're a truth seeker or claim that you're a good philosopher. If you're like that, okay, if you want to be simple and narrow-minded and just jump to a conclusion based on one book that you read from Richard Dawkins, you can't claim that you're a good researcher. You can't claim you're a good philosopher. You can't claim that you're a good truth seeker who looks at both sides. Okay, and I'm just saying that factually, logically, okay. You can't be honest. I'm trying to be honest here. You can't be honest and claim to be a good researcher if you don't look at both sides, if you're not willing to look at lots of information that doesn't fit with your beliefs. I mean, if you don't want to process a ton of information and data, okay, that's fine, but you can't claim to be a good researcher. I just want you to be honest about that. I mean, you can't honestly claim that. So, and I think this is a valid point. I think you can't deny that what I'm saying is valid. And I don't know, if you do make a response to this video, I'd be very surprised, Darryl, but I'd be glad to. And especially if you're willing to admit that some of your positions may not be true and that you have not researched the subject enough. And if you can admit that maybe you're wrong, okay, then I would admire that. I would appreciate that, because very few men that I know can admit that they're wrong, because we all have an ego. We want to be right. When we admit that we're wrong, it makes us look bad. It's embarrassing. So most men generally don't like to admit that they're wrong, even if they know they're wrong. They just don't like to apologize and admit they're wrong. It's an ego thing. It's a male pride thing. And I know your ego is not as bad as a lot of other people, especially American men's egos. I mean, especially American men and women's egos, American egos. I know your ego is not as bad as a lot of arrogant Americans are. Um, and I know you're pretty unselfish in a lot of ways, but I don't see in your videos that you admit that you're wrong very often, okay? Maybe you have once or twice, but not very often do you admit that you're wrong. So if you did, okay, after listening to some of my videos, I would applaud that. That would be great. I mean, it takes a real man to admit that they're wrong, okay? But most men will not do that, even if they know that they're wrong. So I would be surprised if you did, okay? And my respect for you would increase a lot if you would admit that you're wrong on a lot of these kind of issues. But I'm not expecting it because most people just don't like to admit that they're wrong. Myself included, if well, actually, no, I've admitted that I'm wrong sometimes too. I mean, if the evidence warrants it, I'm not afraid to admit that I'm wrong. I don't have an ego about that kind of thing. Okay, sometimes I'll change my mind, I'll change my position on things, and I'll admit that I was wrong. Okay, I mean, when I was young, in my early 20s, I mean, I was a liberal Democrat. I thought the Democratic Party was better than the Republican Party, so I registered to vote as a Democrat. And later I realized I was wrong, because the liberals, what they promote is extreme socialism. They keep moving to the left toward communism and this inhibition of free speech, where everything you have to say has to be politically correct. Political correctness takes away your free speech. It's a form of communism almost. So, and it causes cultural decay and societal decay. It's not honest. It's not down to earth. And it's too obsessed with this notion of equality, which I've explained in my articles why I don't believe in that, and you have too, Darryl. But anyway, anyways, I realized after a while that liberalism was not a good thing. It was not what it claimed to be. It was not a party of compassion. It was all just talk. Okay, and so more and more I became more and more conservative, more and more to the right. Okay, and so I admit that I was wrong, about that in the past, because I've changed and updated my views. So, yeah, I mean, my views and my path, my soul evolution, if you want to call it that, does involve a lot of changes, a lot of revisions of my beliefs. And so our beliefs, as we learn, are constantly changing. And I hope yours are too. So I hope you take to heart some of the things I've said, and even if you don't agree with what I've said, I hope that you'll at least meditate on some of my points. You said that you're doing some Zen meditation. Maybe you can meditate on some of the things I've said and see if it makes sense. Okay, you just got to sift it through, And I know you're busy and maybe you don't have time or energy to think about all these things, but maybe if while you're meditating or something, you can just think about these things 5 or 10 minutes a day and see. Maybe you'll change your mind or revise your positions on some of these. So yeah. Thanks for listening, and hope you've learned something from this. Not just you, Darryl, but anyone else listening to this out there. Because what I say goes for other people as well, not just to Darryl. I also want to say these things to anyone else who takes his views, who has the same views as he does. I hope that they will consider what I've said too. All right, well, thanks for watching. Have a great day, and we'll